Well, here we are at Willie Knob. It's the spring, which is a great time to be up here. That's our bunker, still a work in progress. And there's an electric fence that's got our vineyard inside it. Young vineyard, still growing. And we're doing some fencing today of our fruit trees. Cherry trees, apple, and then some pears. And you don't really see a tree in many of these cases because they're just sticks that we've planted recently. This is a sweet little well house we built. Our well that pumps water up from the ground is inside. Has a concrete foundation and block. And then the walls are made out of cordwood, which is pine wood cut into 12-inch lengths, mortared together. Has a lot of heat capacity and also some good insulation value. And it looks really cool. And it used most of the material in this came from our land. It's our own pine, or is leftover stuff that we recycled from other purposes. As we've taken out pines from the planting, we've been putting in hardwoods. And this is an elm that went in last fall. And a willow oak there. And down the way is a maple and a horse chestnut and a redbud. And then a red oak there. In front of it a redbud. And then over there, probably can't see it, it's behind that pine tree, is another maple. Panning around, come back to the bunker. The last time you guys were here, we had walls and a lot of torn up land around the walls. And we were using the front end loader, the skid steer, to pile in gravel against the wall. Well, that's all done now. A long time ago. And now we have a nice earth buffering of the thermal environment. So we're mostly inside reflecting the ground temperature and not the air temperature. So it's cool in the summer and warm in the winter. 50s anyway. Here's an aerial view of the grapevines. They're not much to look at yet, but we're hoping this summer will be a really good growth summer. And pretty soon, you'll mostly be looking at grapevines along those wires instead of just wires. And today we've been working on fencing the fruit trees with larger fences than we have been putting in. Our outhouse is, can you see it? Yeah, it's in there. That's one of our sheds. Keep junk in there. We're doing a little bit of drywall work in here today. Ooh, there's Sharon. She's making a treat out of fruit. And instead of throwing stuff in a trash can, she just walks out like it's a double wide and throws it wherever she wants to. Here's it. No, not really. That was banana peels. It's compost. So here's the inside of the bunker, and it's much more of a mess than it usually is because we're doing some drywall. Finally putting a wall on that room that one day will be a bathroom. and right now it's just a room we're putting drywall on. Here's Emily, an amazing biologist and one of Shorty's best friends. There's Shorty. Says, don't point that at me. Okay, well, what do we have here? These are recycled crates, and we made ourselves a whole bunch of storage units out of them. And there's some more over there. And in fact, we used about 30 of them to make the ceiling by cutting them up because we liked the rafters the way they were. We didn't want to hide them. We threw a few lights up there as well. And we recently put a big refrigerator in, which is nice. We can leave food up here and not have to always be carting refrigerated stuff back and forth. Here's our south-facing view that lets in the solar energy during the winter and keeps the place from freezing. It does get a little cold at the beginning of March. Might get down into the high 40s, so good thing we're rugged. Here's some molding that I've been working on. We've been working on. This light is not so great. Oh, there you can see it. It's 2x4s, but they have a kind of a knotty pine look, and they're super cheap. So we milled them down and got everything cut right and fit them together. Now, right in between where you see that green, I'm not quite done. I haven't decided what to do about that. But the rest of the window is done. It looks pretty cool. Let me step back here. Yeah. So if you look south in the room, it's actually getting close to the way it's going to be. If you look any other direction, it's not.
Let's talk about the lights in Michigan.
We found some cool lights up in Michigan a couple of summers ago that came out of a movie theater, an old movie theater that was being renovated or torn down or something. Anyway, these lights came available. And we actually have been doing a fair amount of finding stuff in Michigan that we like for the bunker and finding stuff down here that we like for Michigan. So we keep on taking stuff back and forth. What you got going there, sweet cakes?
Yogurt treat.
Yogurt treat. We've been working hard, and we have to take a snack every once in a while. Well, this is our house in springtime. Good time to take a picture. You can see our solar collectors up on top. Get most of our hot water. For about 8 months of the year, we get most of our hot water from those. And the garden's in front, kind of behind some bushes from here. This is going to be a tremendous flower garden very soon, but right now it's still growing. Another few weeks. And we got some snow peas, got some volunteer strawberries. We don't know where they came from. Well, we know where they came from. They came from the strawberries that are up there, but how they got down here, we're not sure. And there's some lettuce, some bok choy, some spinach, beets, squash, several kinds of spices up there. Those are blueberry bushes. This over here is peppers and tomatoes. And this here is asparagus. Get an idea that it's actually asparagus, yes. That's a cool honeysuckle that the hummingbirds really like. This will be raspberries, but it's early in the season, so they're not coming up just yet. There's one of our water tanks. Hope you can see it. It's kind of in the shade. That collects water off of about a quarter of the roof. It's 500 gallons. And those are water tanks, and they total 900 gallons, and they're draining, well, I guess they're about a quarter also. And here's some of the wood we've been laying in for now that we have a wood stove. Oh, these are the strawberries. 2 batches of them. The ones with the white flowers now, which are close, are the late blooming, late fruiting ones. So they're getting pollinated now. These down here have mostly already been pollinated, and we've actually gotten a few fruits already. You can see some fruits in there growing. That's very nice. Little redbud tree here. Our grass has not been cut for a few weeks, and that's because it's full of wildflowers, like this hawkweed that's coming up. So for May and maybe into the first week of June, we don't cut it, and it turns into this big flower field. And that's kind of cool, and our neighbors don't seem to mind too much. This is a little flower bed of irises, which are just starting to bloom, and peonies, they'll be blooming soon. And then back in a little corner here is gladiolus, and they're later in the summer. Had some fig trees here, and they were doing well last year, and we got some figs out of them. But this terrible winter, I think, killed them. They don't seem to be coming back. Certainly the stems are dead, and they don't seem to be coming back out of the ground. So we may have to replant new ones there. This is our rain garden. It catches surface flow, and also part of our roof flow we're diverting into here. And holds, we haven't really calculated it, several thousand gallons anyway. And sinks down into the ground and goes into rainwater instead of into the creek nearby as storm surge. And there's a bunch of like wet tolerant plants that are planted in there, like witch hazel and Joe Pye weed and swamp dogwood. Flame azaleas are starting to bloom. Not a very good camera person here, but just walking around with the camera. There's some more flame azaleas in there. It's the right time of year for them. This is all full of different kinds of wildflowers that Sharon's rescued and found in the woods or bought new. I don't really know all of them. There's a bunch of ferns, May apples, lady slipper. I think there's Jack in the Pulpit in there. And here's the garage we put on a few years ago, which I really love. Cars don't go in there all that much, but they do sometimes. And the patio we put on at the same time. Built this stone wall ourselves in the process of putting in the garage and this driveway. We brought all these rocks down from Willie Knob and it made us a nice retaining wall. Let's have a look at the garage. We built this now about 4 years ago, and it's pretty much moved into. Looks like a regular old garage, I guess. This is a rolling ping pong table. During the cold months, we play here in the garage, and there's plenty of room. And then the other day, actually, a bunch of people came from school, and we played out here. There's another professor named Anderson, Michael Anderson. So we got kind of a rivalry. Anyway, we played ping pong together, and after a whole bunch of matches, it turned out to be a tie. Got a nice chinning bar there for feats of strength whenever the boys show up. See who can do the most. Bunch of garden stuff. Oh, you can see the insulation on the roof. We insulated the roof and the walls and then 2 feet down into the ground, but then didn't insulate the floor. So the floor helps keep the place warmish during the summer, during the winter, and cold during the summer. Kind of. Store our rocket box up there for traveling. There's workshop area. Bunch of stuff, Dad, you'll probably recognize. There's the workbench. Grinders down there. Little toolbox. Keep some stuff back here. Bunch of little drawers with whatever, little stuff labeled on them. Keep some power tools down there in that cabinet. Recently, well, within the past 2 or 3 years, we purchased some good power tools, like this telescopic radial arm saw. Love that thing. And a planer that we use to, get thicknesses right and get them nice and flat, pieces of wood for making custom molding and that kind of stuff. In fact, that's what all this is right here. It's just 2x10, but I love the color on it. It's in the green, so we're going to use that up at Willie Knob. And just some scrap wood and stuff up there. There's an upstairs, a loft, so that's good for light storage. We've got lumber and whatnot. Some of the kids' stuff is up there. Yeah, so that's the garage. I really like having stuff like this stool that pretty much has been around my whole life. Still here. And outside, we're on a corner lot, so kind of a lot of our property is exposed to the street, but this little nook back here is not. Got a lot of firewood stacked up here. And then there's the corner of the house formed by the original house, and then the garage. So there's a street out that way, and there's a street out that way, but back here, not so much. We just got this wood stove, and we've been really satisfied with it, and so wanted to get a lot of wood, but you got to season your wood, especially oak, for a while. Oak is supposed to be 2 years, right? Other hardwoods, like poplar, a year ought to be good enough. So we had a cord, I think, delivered, and then supplemented that with some wood that we just scavenged around here. And that's what that is, and that's going to be great for next year. It's ready to go. And then we've been watching for whenever a tree came down in the neighborhood, like when the university takes one down or something like that. And we run over there with the trailer and work out with them whether we can take it or not. So that's what that stuff is there, and today we're actually building a little shelter like this for that over there. The back row is a bunch of poplar, and the front row is red oak. The rest of that red oak is still standing, but it's going to come down probably early next week, so it's one of our neighbors. So I'll be over there working with him to take at least part of it. There's no way we could take all of it, but add a few more cords to this. And when Sharon gets back today with some T-posts, we'll make ourselves a nice little rain thing like that with those tarps over here. Yep. I think that's everything that's interesting about the backyard. one more thing about the garage that I meant to mention and I forgot is that some of these pieces are on rollers, and so it makes the space really flexible. Like this bench here is really where I do most of our work, and that guy just rolls around to wherever it needs to be, and we can juxtapose it to the workbench or to the saw or whatever. I love the fact that this thing just rolls around. And when we do want to bring the cars in, like there's bad weather or something and we want both cars in, it's a little bit tight, but not so bad, because we can roll that table into along this line right here, along the center line, and the cars come right in beside the table then. Same thing with the saw. The saw is mounted on this long table and it rolls, so I can't really show you very well, but that dude just comes right out. It looks like it's kind of attached to those drawers below, but it's not. It just fits over the top of them, and it has those wheels at the bottom. So that can go anywhere at once also. If we're going to cut something really long, we'd get it out of there and probably line it up with this with some support, and that would support the far end of the piece that was being cut. The planer is bolted to this metal table. I don't know what the history of this little table was, but I got it from you. So we put some heavy casters on the bottom of that, and it comes rolling around too. When you plane something, you generate a whole lot of little shavings, so we don't really want that in here. So I take that out the door, and we do that outside, and some of it blows away, and a lot of it we sweep up. Anyway, it's real handy how this stuff is on rollers, and sometimes this wall back here just doesn't have much on it because we've moved all of the larger equipment out, and it's out in the garage or outside on the driveway. So that's real handy.